Welcome to the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast, where we break down what it really takes to win in short-term rentals in today's market. From insider tips and emerging trends to real conversations with top playmakers in the space, this show gives you the tools, strategies, and mindset to build and scale a successful short-term rental business. Now, here's your host, Joe Roney.
Today's episode is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents, the short-term rental real estate experts helping investors find profitable vacation rental properties nationwide. If you're serious about scaling your STR portfolio, Savvy STR Agents should be your first call.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast. I am super excited to have the GOAT when it comes to safety in short-term rentals, Mr. Justin Ford. How you doing?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I don't know if I'm a New England Patriots fan, and we always still call the GOAT Tom Brady. So I don't know if I'm worthy of that title yet, but I appreciate it.
Well, you definitely are, and you've brought so much awareness into the industry over the past few years that I know for sure, because it truly is a major thing that we have to do better on as hosts, is safety in our homes.
It is, and you know, safety sounds like such a boring term. I've tried to bring excitement and interest around it. I talk to people all the time that are like, I thought you were just going to be like talking about boring safety stuff, and wow. So I do take pride that I think I've been able to make it interesting, and at the same time give people hope. A lot of times safety people are, no, you can't do that, and I'm more well, you probably shouldn't do that, but here's a way you can fix it and make it so it does work without having to do too much.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I first invested in short-term rentals, I'm in the Panama City Beach market, and up until about 18 months ago, we had zero regulations, zero anything in the industry, and everyone's like, oh, this is great, there's no regulations, but and people always talk about the negative part of regulations. But I think the safety side is probably the most important part of regulations in our industry.
It is. If I had my druthers, I would help make sure that we have good regulations for safety in all the markets we operate in, because generally speaking, if you're a property manager, you want your owners to fall in the line, and the only way you're going to get them to do it is regulations. And if you look at markets that have heavy regulations, and Anna Maria Island is a big one. They've had huge success. They just announced that last year was the first year they had no pool drownings at vacation rentals and no fires. So they dropped that. They're able to market now that they're a safer destination. In Palm Springs, California, 2015, they came in, most pools per capita in the world, said, we're going to put heavy regulations in place. Everybody said, we're done. Now here we are over 10 years later. They have almost twice as many vacation rentals, and again, very little incidents, and they're able to market that they're a safe destination for visitors, and they now love that they have those regulations for that reason.
Yeah, I heard you maybe a month or two ago, but you were on speaking somewhere, and you talked about the amount of people that have died in a short-term rental compared to hotels and motels, and the percentage was astoundingly different.
Yeah, it is. And cruise ships, cruise ships lost 3 people. When you look, I always look at where do people go on vacation. Wherever they go, they need to have a roof over their head. So your choice is pretty much a hotel, a vacation rental, or a cruise ship. And so when you compare those, we're far and above the most dangerous sector of hospitality or short-term rentals. But you got to put that in context when you remember that the home is the most dangerous place human beings encounter. Travel aside, 52% of all injuries that American human beings encounter is in the home. So when you take somebody and put them in a home they're not familiar with, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I was saying in PCB, like when regulations first came in, and they're still going through it, like it's still a process, but like I went into homes that had, sleeping 21 people in a 1,500 square foot home, with bunk beds lined across the walls, blocking windows, blocking entranceways. I went into homes that didn't have fire extinguishers. I still go into homes like this as a realtor, and I'm like, what are these people doing? And most of the safety issues are really common sense. And I think that's the biggest misconception, is that you got to do all these crazy things.
Right.
But if you just use common sense, I think that plays a big part of it.
Yeah, there's two things there, and it's a story I don't talk about very often, but I know, and this is indicative that what could happen in any market. If you look at some of the biggest changes in PCB, they lead back to an event 3 years ago on Christmas Eve, and it was a vacation rental 4 o'clock in the afternoon that caught on fire right in the heart of Panama City Beach, and a woman died, and people were like, how does someone die in a fire during daytime? But they didn't take into account that she was a heavy-set woman, and it was very difficult for her to get down the stairs and out of the property. The fire started because of the grill being used too close to the house underneath the stairs, so they couldn't get to her. And I think that that's an eye-opening moment, and it makes people realize, wow, this is the general public coming to stay into these homes. I never thought about a 300-plus pound woman staying in my vacation rental, but trust me, it happens. It happens a lot. But the other thing that came out of that was also this recognition that such an event like that can change and suddenly put all these regulations into place. And people, need to anticipate that all these things can happen really quickly, and that most government entities are reactive. And so you're just one incident away from regulations.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And as a host, we want to provide a great experience for our guests, right? That's number one. But we also want to provide a great, safe experience for our guests. And everyone is in that mindset of, oh, well, there's a small percentage. It's probably not going to happen to me. But then when it is the person that it happens to you, that's when it can be detrimental to your business.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm seeing a tremendous growth, and someone just shared it with me, another law firm in Florida just opened exclusively focusing on incidents around vacation rentals. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hadn't actually said this before. I'm itching a little bit to want to get into expert witness work. I've stayed away from it. I'm like the before guy. But I get more calls from firms in Florida that are looking for someone like me who knows how it's supposed to be done right to point the finger at an operator and say, you should have known this, and there was good reason to know this. And so that's the other big thing that people really need to pay attention to, is litigation is on the rise, not on the decline when it comes to our industry.
It is. And, I was actually just had somebody reach out to me that just purchased a property in the market, and they asked for recommendations for property managers. And they actually took the property manager's contract and took it to their attorney and said, is this property manager's contract protecting me, or how does the indemnity work, and how does the liability work? Instead of just signing off and saying, okay, this is a great property manager, they actually did their homework. And I don't think very many people do that to understand where the liability is held.
They don't. And, it's only been tested so far at a statewide level in North Carolina, but that indemnity clause, we're learning based on, the way that the courts ruled in North Carolina around a pool drowning incident with a professional manager. It's turned out to be as good as toilet paper, essentially. The only person who's indemnifying is the person who signs the rental agreement, and you're not going to get everybody to sign it. So That's a real problem. And then if you don't have things working as they should, indemnification means nothing. Now you're negligent. And that's what these attorneys are quickly finding out, is that just because you're signing an agreement and you're insured does not mean you're protected. So that's really great that host was going in and doing that with the property manager. But unfortunately, it's still not enough. You've got to really dig in with a property manager when you're interviewing them and going, are you keeping records and documenting everything that you're doing? That on my head's one of those sources for it, obviously, Breezeway, but you've got to make sure that you're record keeping, because you're negligent if you're not.
Yep, and I'll do a Breezeway plug because my company, we only manage 10 properties, but we just switched over to Breezeway, and part of it was for better documentation. The monthly maintenance checklist that's going to get checked off, the cleaners that are going in and taking pictures and having, photos uploaded after every single turn to show exactly what that property looked like when they left, because then if the guest did misplace something or do something that was out of place, that could potentially change who's liable in those situations. And that's actually one of the reasons why we switched over.
I've heard just this, what are we? I think it's Wednesday we're recording this. I've heard already this week several cases. I heard of a case up in Breckenridge, Colorado, where that documentation ended up helping in an incident where a hot tub cover on the arm was broken. The guest said it was broken. It resulted in a severe injury to them. Documentation showed it was not broken beforehand. Another one where, there are a lot of management companies now, based on my advice, are doing a great job having the cleaners take a picture, or the inspector, that the lights work, the outside lights work. And we just had an incident where a guest claimed several months earlier that they tripped and fell arriving at the property because the lights didn't work. They were able to pull that Breezeway report and show, actually, no, because here's a picture, geodate timestamp tagged in the report of the cleaner taking a picture of the light switch, turning it on and off, and the lights. It took the cleaner 13 seconds to do that. That just saved them $350,000.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I think there's so many avenues of safety, and it's opened my eyes listening to you and listening to the different things that you've talked about over the past few years. And you've been on other podcasts. We're just in a speaking event down in North Carolina. You're definitely out there really, sharing this knowledge, but I've changed the way I host and look at properties and walk properties based on a lot of the stuff that I've learned from what you're teaching. So if you had to go out and talk to hosts, like, what are your top 3, top 5 things that you really see that are major misses that most hosts miss, and things that we could really do as a community to make an impact?
I think one of the big ones is, and I urge everyone listening to this not to laugh, not to snicker, not to go, well, all right, I get the idea. Do this. Take a piece of luggage, put 50 pounds of weight in it. Maybe it's clothes you're well past due to take to the thrift store and donate, but load it up. Go to your vacation rental at night. Park your car as far out the driveway as you can, mimicking what a guest might have to do, and then use your cell phone as a flashlight and take that piece of luggage and go try and enter your property. And I talk about this sometimes at presentations. I don't think I've mentioned this in an interview before. I have people who've emailed me and went, oh my God, I had no idea. We didn't realize that because of the way you pull left-handed with the luggage, you end up having to step out around the bushes. And when you do that, that's a major ankle twist. We didn't see that. We didn't realize the shadows that are there. We never thought about the fact that balancing your phone as a flashlight, because we didn't have good outside lights and we installed new ones. So that's like, if that's all you walk away with hearing me today, trust me, I just saved thousands of people getting injured from their guest arrival.
Yeah, we have a sign on our light switch for our front porch, keep on, leave on. Of course, the cleaners, before they leave, are supposed to make sure it's on. I have cameras that I can check on that, but that's a huge thing. I've walked up to Airbnbs before where all the lights are completely off and it's just a dark, dingy area.
Lutron, Ring, there's all kinds of products. I just installed it actually in my own. I'm in a property that we're going to use personally as a vacation rental. It was $86 for me to buy the smart kit and a Lutron light switch that I now have plugged in, that the outside lights come on at sunset and, get turned back off again at sunrise. I mean, it's just an app. It's that cheap. You should have that set up in your properties. The one challenge with what you shared is that you have them on that first night, then the guests turn them off. They come back the second night and go, oh crap, no one turned the lights on for us. And then they have trips and falls. So you can automate that. It's cheap to do it.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'm going to have to look into the Lutron, because I agree. There's been times that I've driven by my rentals when somebody was there and looked over and all the lights are off, and you don't know if they were out or if they were home. So I agree. I like that idea. So what are a couple other things that you see as big misses when setting up a short-term rental?
A big miss, and especially down near the market you're in, is lithium batteries. Our industry is so far behind on understanding them, and yet we're most exposed to it. If you've flown recently, there's so much attention. And if you don't know, just as a quick little side note on this, when you get on a plane, the reason they want your laptop put above, like during takeoff, all large electronics have to be above, and why they don't want them under the plane. When you check in, they always ask you that question, do you have any lithium batteries in your bags? And they want that in the overhead compartment because that is the easiest space for them to deal with that as a fire. And during takeoff, the steward, they're in their seat. They can't do it, but they have fire extinguishers nearby. And the hope is that the overhead bin is going to control that fire enough so that they can then get to it once the plane hits 10,000 feet. That's the best place to manage it. Now, why are the airlines all over? Because it's happening. I've actually been on a flight when a cell phone caught on fire. I was on a plane that turned around because a cell phone dropped down between the seat. It presented too much of a fire hazard. So think about how the airline industry is approaching it, and yet we're seeing more incidents in vacation rentals than they are. You just had a bike that destroyed 2 vacation rentals in Destin near you because the guests forgot their charging cord. And that's what they do. They all forget their chargers, and they go to 7-Eleven, or they modify a cord, or they go to Walmart, Target, buy an aftermarket cord, excuse me. And then they're plugging it into an outlet that you haven't even had checked to make sure it can do it. You've got your circuit panel that's not locked, doesn't have a sign on it. The guests are resetting the breakers. So we have a lot to do in our industry right now to recognize the hazards of lithium batteries and manage it. And people haven't even really started to do that yet.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. I'll be honest, that's not something that I've really thought about a ton, and I mean, I have thought about it, but not to the level that you just discussed.
Right. There are, I was with a company in Beverly Hills recently. They actually have charging lockers. They make lockers for lithium battery type devices to be charged in because the risks are so high. And it's everything they're bringing. It's not just a cell phone. We see a lot of cell phone fires because the kids don't get their cell phone at home. On vacation, parents aren't managing it well, and hosts and operators are making it so easy for them to plug it in while they're in bed. And then they're able to charge and hide it under their pillow, and it catches on fire overheating. Boot heaters if you're in ski markets, drones if you're in warmer markets, e-bikes. Those bikes are banging on bike racks for 8 hours all day. They get damaged. So there's a lot to be done there, and I do have recommendations. A lot of people are going, really? But trust me, every host or operator who's had a lithium battery is like, Justin, we just had one. What do we do? And I'm like, yeah, I know. A lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, having fire extinguishers on every level and
Yes.
having preparation is so important for just little things like that. I think it's funny, and I've seen you post multiple times where when you walk into, whether it be a short-term rental or a hotel or whatever it is, you have certain safety things that if it's not in place, you'll just turn around and walk out.
Yeah, it is one of the best examples is a top amenity. Everyone likes to have a hot tub because there's some money in it, but I won't get in a hot tub unless I have proof that it has been maintained by a professional and balanced by a professional. I was just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Somebody saw that I was in the area and they said, Justin, can you go by and check my rental? I went, yeah. I was there 2 minutes and I'm like, this is an all-day event. I don't have too much time for this, but let's just get one big thing. Let's get out of the way is take the 2 containers of shock and bleach, chlorine bleach that you have that are sitting by the door to the hot tub that have a sign that say, hey, guests, add a scoop after each use. Get rid of that immediately. And we'll say I just gave you a big win. Hot tub rash, all that stuff. Yeah, it's gross. And Stop with the foamy water in the hot tub and the advertising photos too. That one's driving me nuts too. I'll go on to an Airbnb listing and people say, what do you think? I'm like, are you promoting a bubble bath here? Because I'm not getting in that. And if you can't figure out not to market your property with a foamy hot tub, I know that you don't have a clue what else you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's we have a hot tub at our personal residence, and it happened one time where the chemicals got out of balance and it was all foamy. I'm like, all right, it's time to drain this and get rid of it, because yeah, that is not good. That is not what you want in your hot tub. It should be clear water.
Rashes, that's another top call I get. I had a call last week from an attorney. Hey, I have a client. Right after they stayed in an Airbnb, they had a rash all over them. And is that something you can? I'm like, I don't do that, but dude, it happens all the time. Ask them to get a copy of the professional record of maintenance on that hot tub. And if they don't have one, you probably are going to have a good case.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely a good point. And like you said, hot tubs are a big thing. Any issues with saunas? Is there any maintenance issues with saunas that you see that should be addressed? Because that's a big thing in the industry right now.
Yeah, saunas are big, and this brings up another great point, and I'll answer that question by also saying one of the things that I'm really fortunate is I'm very tied in with the insurance side of the industry. So I see the claims that are out there. They don't usually promote what those are. I'm actually not even, through some NDAs, not able to get too specific, but I can generalize. And I see a lot of hot tub stuff. Bunk beds are huge, but saunas I just haven't been seeing claims for them. I've seen what I believe are some unsafe setups with them, but to date, I haven't seen a sauna fire or a legal claim come forth related to them. That said, I would still encourage people to make sure that they do have the proper safety warnings posted directly at the hot tub. Consult your doctor. If you have high blood pressure, don't drink alcohol in here. Most saunas come with those. Amplify it and make that sign bigger. And just make sure that, kids can't easily access them without parental approval.
Yeah, no, I think that's good information. I mean, the more signage, the better, when it comes to protecting yourself as a host. Obviously, you talked about rental agreements. Obviously, I have a rental agreement signed by the booking person. Are you saying you recommend possibly everybody that's there sign a rental agreement? Is that possible?
So the interpretation is, and I'm actually working on a LinkedIn post for this with a good friend of mine, the STR legal attorney, Katie Johnson, and I've been talking about this. You've got that North Carolina case I talked about, but there's a major case, if you Google right now, that Airbnb's been fighting off in federal court. 6 people died in the Wisconsin Dells Airbnb fire 2 years ago, and they've gotten through the worst of those hurdles against Airbnb because Airbnb was saying that the rental agreement and the person who signed it indemnified, but it's all the people who died that didn't. And so they've been losing on the fact, and it's in every major news carrier, that they didn't sign the rental agreement. The people who died, they never had rights to begin with. And so, yes, there's an argument for what you say. Airbnb's approach, if you look at the new terms and agreements that go into effect in April, is they're distancing themselves even further by saying, look, we got nothing to do with the rental. And whoever's there, that's on you. People have said, if you run those terms and agreements through, chatbot, GBT, or Claude, you can see that that's where the big change is on the safety side. My argument is you're not going to get everybody to sign it, and that doesn't mean anything anyway. Just make the property safe. You can do that. And I think appropriate signage in the right places will help you address a lot of issues that are out there. And I've had some legal support for that opinion as well.
Yeah. And one thing that I do want to bring up is pull alarms on doors going outside. And because I've seen all kinds, right? You see the ones that are just like a battery one that they can turn on or off. And then you see the ones that it's going to come on no matter what, unless you push the button to turn it off. And it's only a time lock before it starts going off again. What ones do you recommend, and do you feel are the best for safety?
So I'm 50. I'm going to be 54 this year. I feel like I'm running out of time. I still have so much to do in my career with safety. So I'm going to throw this one out to somebody if they want to take it. We need better pull alarms for the short-term rental industry. There isn't a good one out there at all. There's nothing good. However, if I was going to have a property and I would have pull alarms, they would be the hardwired, interconnected ones. Not one that just chimes at the door. I want to hear an alarm up in the parent's bedroom that a child who got up early in the morning gained access to the pool. You can't hear that 2 floors down that beep, 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 that they just open the door. That doesn't mean anything to someone, a parent who's like, thank God we're on vacation and I just had some wine. It's not good enough. So interconnected, hardwired pool alarms, they make those. The Israelis make a really good product, the manta ray, the coral ray, excuse me, that, floats in and beams lights and can detect movement. There's $2,000 or $3,000. I'd probably have that too. But signage is a big thing you can do. And the cheapest thing you can do is a water watcher program. Highly encourage that as well.
What's that?
So the Water Watcher program, it's offered through the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Council. You can get them for free from the government. I actually had a customer in Costa Rica who heard me, translated it into Spanish, and then reached out and got them free from the U.S. government. The U.S. government shipped them. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, to Costa Rica. But they're a little card that has either a neck lanyard or a wrist bracelet, and whoever is wearing that is watching the pool, not going to the bathroom, not drinking alcohol. And you may think that's aggressive, but just having that on the counter at least puts in the guest's mind for a minute. What's this? Something about water. Oh, hey, kids, you got to be safe around the pool. It at least gets them to think about the fact that the operator or the host put those out. Must want them to think about pool safety. And if you can get their attention on that for 5 seconds, you've got to win.
Yeah. I agree. I think I think that's good. What do you think about the pool alarms that go in the pool? Because I've seen those recently, and I think they're crap because all they do is pick them up and take them out of the pool, and then they're not there.
They're not good for an STR. None of those work. Pool drownings in our industry are cause. They're the number one cause of killer. Our number one killer of vacation renters is pool drownings. We've had way too many in our industry. We've had several this year. We just had one in Florida. We've already had I was just contacted on Sunday about a near one in Scottsdale. They are happening way too often, and they're all over 2 different things. One, access. Pool gates that aren't self-closing latching. Put a sign on every access door, window to the pool and remind people to keep those closed. And number 2, they're caused by inattentive parents. Some of the worst pool drownings we've seen, everybody's been right there, and it's because they don't see that there's all this flotation stuff in there. And, the top insurers out there, they won't let you provide anything but U.S. Coast Guard approved flotations. That Pegasus floating pink flamingo, get those out of your marketing photos. I know people who won't rent a property when they see that stuff because they know that the host isn't paying attention. And they also know they don't have good insurance because the top insurers don't allow that stuff. That is bad stuff. It covers the pool. You can't see the kids.
Yeah, no, I agree. I will say we've put those in our photos, but then we don't leave them. We don't leave them in there though. We actually keep them with us and we just take them out for photos. So, but I agree, not leaving them in there.
I've given you 3 good nuggets here today. We're gonna go to work. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, we don't leave those in after the photos are done. That's just for pics for attention.
Yes, no, I know.
But I agree. I think tons of great information. I mean, we could talk all day long about safety. I do think this is such a huge thing. I was talking about what happened in Panama City Beach, and there's this whole people that are fighting it. They're fighting these regulations. They're saying, oh, it costs too much money and this and that. And I'm like, these are common sense regulations. Like having working fire alarms and fire extinguishers that get tagged every year. And, too many people will go buy that Walmart $20 fire extinguisher and say, oh, I got a fire extinguisher, that's enough. No, we go to the fireplace, get it tagged, and they come back every single 12 months, re-tag it with a new date. And that's required in our market now. But most of these markets don't require that. So you don't know if that fire extinguisher is going to be working or not when you actually need it.
I run into properties all the time. Sometimes I was at one not that long ago over in St. Simon Island in Georgia, and they knew I was coming. And about a month before I arrived, they put fire extinguishers in all around their grills. Figured, I don't know. It's kind of like when you have a cleaner coming to clean your house, but before the cleaner comes, you kind of clean anyway because you don't want the cleaner to see what a mess it is. Yeah. So I came in there and I'm like, that's great. The first 2 fire extinguishers we saw were empty, and they're like, what the heck's going on? These are brand new. And then I'm walking over the grill and we're seeing residue. At the second house, the neighbors are like, hey, are you with the rental company? And we're like, yeah, we're doing some safety stuff. They're like, yeah, the last guests that were here, the grill caught on fire, and I actually had to lend them my fire extinguisher too. And I'm like, see, you need these. We had 9,000 grill fires. But The thing that's really important to remember about these inspections, even the ones in PCB, they're fire inspections, and fire is 3% of incidents that we have. They're they're not doing a deck inspection. Florida requires balcony inspections every 5 years for certain properties, but they're not coming in and inspecting for the most common things. So don't let that false sense of security go, wow, we passed the fire inspection, we're good to go. They're not going to be there when you get sued because, the bike that you've left out that hasn't been inspected in a long time just caused a guest injury.
No, I agree. There's definitely a lot more safety issues than just the fire inspection. And as a host, I think that's the biggest issue, is that most hosts treat this as a side gig. Oh, I got a little vacation rental, I got nothing, and they don't put the thought into that. And that's where the property managers, not all of them, but some property managers beat the regular host, is because they do that because their insurance requires it. And I think for us, especially in the smaller space, the co-hosting space, the new up-and-comers have got to take this more seriously if we're going to change the course of our industry.
There's two things out there that should nail that home. One is industry standard. It used to be that there was an industry standard. So even though, for example, there's no law in Florida that says you have to have a hot tub safety sign, it's industry standard that you should have one. And that's what expert witnesses will testify, that you should know that. So don't just say because there's not a law for it, you're not supposed to do it. You have to know all this. But the thing that these operators need to understand, I love this industry. It's my 29th year going into it. The thing they need to understand is you skipped it. Now it's time to go back and do it. If you go work as a chef in a kitchen, there's safety training.
Yep.
If you go work at a hotel, first day at Marriott, safety training. If you go work for an airline, they don't let you on the tarmac without 2 weeks of safety training. Yep. Every industry has safety training, and you can't skip it and go, well, my kindergarten, safety class where they brought the red helmets and I got to honk the horn on the fire truck. That's not enough. And that's what most Americans have. So you got to go above and beyond that.
I think that's the last thing I'll finish with on this is your monthly inspectors, whether they're like, I have a monthly maintenance inspector and they're going in to inspect the house. Safety inspection is part of that, looking for these things, making sure the fire extinguishers are on there. This is where the Breezeway checklist for my monthly inspection comes in at, because they're checking these things and then they're marking off that it's been checked and done. And I think and that's, like I said, that's the reason why we made this switch over to Breezeway from Turno, which is a great app and it's been amazing for me. But there's so many resources that are in that app and in that platform that I love, and my maintenance guy loves it. And they're like, "Oh wow, this is great. We actually have a checklist, and we can make sure that we're hitting on all these." And then my cleaners obviously have their own checklist, and I think that is that, in my opinion, that should be the industry standard. You should have someone every 30 days walking safety in your property.
Absolutely, it's not a matter of if. Oh boy, if we ever have, that heavy set guest, if they ever bring kids, if they ever drink alcohol, if there was ever a fire, you've got to go into the mentality of when it happens. And if you don't walk into your rental property and go, okay, when there's a fire, okay, when there's kids here, okay, when there's elderly people here, what's going to happen? How is this going to be addressed? Then you're not doing your guests a service. That's not hospitality. We're in the hospitality business. That's what our primary goal should be.
Nope, that's awesome. We want our guests to have a great time, but we also want them to be able to go home safe and enjoy the rest of their life as well. So, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for coming on and speaking on this today. I do think it's such a huge, important topic that needs to continue to be talked about, and you are the leader in the industry of that. So if somebody needed to get in touch with you, had questions, needed advice, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, short-term rental safety. That's my handle on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, short-term rental safety. My email is justin@breezeway.io. And I'm happy. I spend probably my first 3 hours of the morning between having coffee and having a soak in my hot tub, just responding to people's questions and what if, and here's a picture of my fire pit. What do you think of this? And I'm happy to do any of that kind of stuff, because Breezeway believes that the only way that our industry is going to get better is if we professionalize it, and that professionalization starts with safety.
Nope. I agree 100%. I know I've got at least 2 or 3 nuggets that I'm getting ready to text my wife that we got to take care of just in this conversation, and I consider myself an expert host, and I do take safety important, but there's still things that we're all could do better on. And there's a few things that I know we can do better on, and we're going to put those into action as we go through our monthly walks over the next couple of weeks. So thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to seeing you at some of these other events, lots of micro conference events. I know you're invited to a lot of them. I'm hoping to be speaking at a few of them later on this year. So hopefully get a chance to meet in person, and I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Short Term Rental Playmaker. I'll talk to you next week.